FMNR network in Uganda was established in 2014 with the purpose of scaling up FMNR practice, as it was learned as a very efficient model in regreening Uganda, in regreening landscapes.
Farmer Managed Natural Regeneration is a very simple technology that involves regenerating trees from already existing tree stumps. In fact, we are lucky that most of our indigenous tree species have a natural ability to grow back when they have been cut down. It is an ability that God gave, to many of the indigenous tree species that we have. So what Farmer Managed Natural Regeneration does is to encourage people that after they have cut the trees and they have regenerated, they do not clear off the sprouts, but they nurture the sprouts and allow these sprouts to grow into trees. And it is all about encouraging communities to appreciate this ability of trees to regenerate, to appreciate indigenous tree species, and to be able to change their mindset from thinking that if you want to grow trees, you only have to plant a tree seedling. There is a simpler, much easier way of regenerating trees, and that is through encouraging the regeneration of the already existing tree stumps within their farms.
We are revisiting this technology because farmers have complained about sources of indigenous trees, and yet there is an important source of planting material in the soil. The soil is an important seed bank. So if we only teach farmers how to manage the seedling that germinates on its own in the garden and propagate it into a mature tree, that is the only way we can support the reoccurrence of the indigenous trees that are getting depleted. When you drive through Arua, when you drive through parts of Karamoja, when you drive through parts of Nakasongola, when you drive through Mpigi, when you go through the Greater Kibale, you will see examples of where farmers are now using Farmer Managed Natural Regeneration as an approach to support the propagation of trees, to support the regeneration of indigenous species in the community on their farms, and this is greatly improving their quality of life. When you propagate these indigenous trees, there is a way you can quickly realize the results. These naturally regenerating trees are serving as potential trees where beehives can be hanged, and the results are that you will have honey on the same farm, you will have other products like timber, you will have other products like poles, which you can get out of these trees that are managed on your farm without bringing in a new exotic species which have their own side effect.
Through this simple act of environmental restoration by regenerating trees, it gives people a measure of control over their destiny. And instead of being hopeless victims of climate change and poverty and fearing the future, not knowing from day to day or from year to year if you will have enough food to put on the table for your family, people move from that negative, frightening position to having a measure of control and experiencing the restoration of hope. Now, we talk about the restoration of the vegetation, but what's happening internally is perhaps even greater. We just can't see it on the landscape. And so this restoration of hope is so important. When you have hope, you'll take positive actions to improve your life. You will make investments in your land and your house. You'll be able to send your children to school, and you'll think about things for the future. And no longer will you be so tempted to take short-term but destructive actions. I don't think people deliberately set out to destroy the environment. I don't think most people want to do that. But too often it's desperation that puts them in that position. When you have hope, And when your basic needs are being met, you can rise above that and plan and act for a better future.
In northern Uganda, currently, we have a tree called Aphezelia africana that is being harvested large scale, and it is illegally exported to Asian countries. Farmers are worried how they are going to regenerate this tree. But the option is farmer managed natural regeneration because the seeds are already there in the soil. We are also looking at how another tree species which is endangered again in northern Uganda, it is called Vitellaria paradoxa. This is the shea butter tree. The shea butter tree is also facing challenges, and it is a little bit complicated to propagate, to raise it in the nurseries. The only option we have is to allow it to regenerate in the farms, in the gardens. And what farmers in northern Uganda are doing is to allow this tree to germinate in their gardens and propagate it and look after it, and it grows into bigger trees. When it grows into bigger trees, they are harvesting fruits, which fruits bear oil, and this oil is used for different products, for making soap and also for cooking at household level. So you can see that the benefits of farmer managed natural regeneration are enormous. Not only do we meet our own household needs, but also meet the national obligations of maintaining a permanent forest estate.
One of the things that we need to realize is that the rate at which we are deforesting our country is much higher than the rate at which we are restoring tree cover or replanting the trees. So FMNR, of course, provides a much more rapid approach to be able to restore tree cover. So if we are to move from this level to be able to promote this approach, which is going to contribute very greatly to many of the commitments our country has made, first and foremost, to be able to return our tree cover to 24% as it was in 1990, that is 24% of the total land cover. Our commitments towards the bond challenge, where the country has committed to restoring 2.5 million hectares of deforested and degraded land, that is by 2020, and many other commitments that the country has made. We need to go beyond just the single entities and single organizations that are promoting FMNR to integrating this approach into policies, into programs, because the planning that happens at district local government level follows, the policies and the laws and the programs that have been formulated at national level. And therefore, if FMNR is not included at national level within the program designs, it becomes very difficult for the local governments to take it up. Whereas if it is integrated within programs at national level, or it is integrated into policy at national level, it becomes very easy to trickle it down to the district local governments and those other planning units within the country. That is the way in which actually FMNR even spread within the World Vision structures, because it was integrated within a strategic plan. And so it was very easy for the clusters and the area programs to just pick it up as one of the models, and they started budgeting for it and they started implementing. That's the same way that I think that FMNR can move beyond just being an approach that is appreciated by a few organizations, members of the FMNR network, so that it is taken up at country level.
We come from the soil, and when we die, we'll return to the soil. And in the in-between time, between birth and death, if you think about it, our clothing, our food, our livelihood still comes from the soil. And when you lose that resource, life on Earth becomes miserable, becomes untenable. And I guess my plea is, don't wait till it's too late. Niger Republic, where I spent 17 years, almost waited till it was too late. It took the disaster, the catastrophe of severe drought, compounded by deforestation, for that country to wake up and turn around completely and begin to repair the damage. Many African countries are losing 200,000 up to 300,000 hectares of forest per year. And there are consequences. More flooding, loss of biodiversity, wildlife, loss of fodder, loss of soil fertility, greater impact of drought when we have years of low rainfall. There are consequences for our actions. We don't have to wait until we've almost lost everything before we turn around. Learn the lesson of Niger and be proactive to make a change now, for your own sake, for the sake of your children and your grandchildren. I should say that's a collective plea. I'm not pointing the finger. I have grandchildren and I'm concerned for their future, and that's why I campaign not just in Africa but around the world. If you think in terms of climate change, it's increasingly becoming more and more difficult to even grow food. As temperatures rise, crop yields will reduce. As weather becomes more variable, more and more good agricultural land will become marginal. I firmly believe, from my experience of more than 30 years now teaching agriculture and FMNR on farmland, that in the future the only farmers who will be successful are those who've maintained some level of tree cover. Those trees will reduce the temperatures. They will buffer the extremes of climate that will otherwise make agriculture impossible. Those trees will be an insurance policy and a bank account in those hard years that farmers can draw on, selling non-timber forest products and timber as well, fuelwood, building poles. In the years that crops do fail, the tree itself will become a resource that farmers can draw on.
It is not difficult to join Farmer Managed Natural Regeneration, no matter who you are, at what level of stakeholder group you are. If you are a farmer and you have a plot of land, the only way you can do is to put aside a given plot of land and manage it under Farmer Managed Natural Regeneration. The trees will grow on their own. You don't have to add money. You don't have to go to an extension officer. You are your own extension officer, and the land and the seed bank in the soil is your investment. If you are a donor out there and you want to support the gospel according to Farmer Managed Natural Regeneration, kindly contribute. We do not need a lot of resources. All we need is to train a certain group of communities on how to manage these trees, and that's all.
Donors who are investing in combating climate change, donors who are investing in restoration of our forest cover within the country, donors that are investing in forest landscape restoration, in reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation, that is RED, and in ecosystem-based adaptation and related initiatives. My message to you is that Farmer Managed Natural Regeneration will give you value for money. You will be able to see impact at scale and within a relatively much shorter time, because FMNR as a model is quite cheap, it is easily replicable, and if you invest in FMNR, you will not regret, because you're going to be able to realize value for money.
Where trees grow, people grow. We can let these trees grow, and we can also grow with them. I would like to call upon the members present, the members of Parliament, Minister of Water, Minister of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries. We call upon National Environmental Management Authority. We call upon the civil society organizations, the development partners, and the media and all the farmer organizations, that together we can be the champions. Together we can champion Farmer Managed Natural Regeneration, and we can grow better, and we can champion this for the betterment of our country, for the betterment of our planet.
So I want to encourage each of you that is listening to promote FMNR and to become an FMNR champion. Thank you.